All right, welcome back to a new episode. Today, we're going to go over a preview of this week's Nebraska game. Obviously, as we all know, it is going to reignite a rivalry from the past. We can all think back to the game of the century in the last
Can
Big
you
12
can,
title
can you
game.
think back to the game of the century?
Yeah, of course. You
Really?
just got to
When
go
you
watch
were
the highlights real quick.
when you were negative 25, negative 50 years old,
Hey,
negative 30
there's
years old.
tape. You can watch the tape. And then obviously the last Big 12 title game in 2010, I believe. So it'll be a fun game. I think we're going to just destroy him. But before we get into anything, obviously we want to, take a second to tell you guys that we really appreciate, all the likes, the comments. It's always fun to hear what you guys think. And obviously, if you guys can go ahead and click that like button, make sure you're hitting subscribe and share the video if you enjoy them. We want to keep growing and we appreciate what you guys have done so far. So keep doing what you're doing and let's get us to that next level. So let's get into this. I know Brum and Brandon are going to have a lot of thoughts on Nebraska. I guess here, I'm going to kick it to Brandon real quick. I know he absolutely hates this team sometimes.
Yeah, man, I hate everybody OU plays pretty much for the most part. Everybody else can screw off. But the thing about this thing is, it is cool that they're bringing the rivalry back, like you mentioned. Lincoln Riley talked about it. I highlighted like the importance of this game, and I think he's trying to teach these players the importance of this game and this rivalry because I saw an article, I forget exactly where, but it's the truest thing about this game is this game is a rivalry for the fans who are diehards of both Oklahoma and Nebraska. It is not for these players for the most part. These kids on this team are anywhere from 18 to 21, 22 years old, 23 at max. They don't know a thing about this rivalry unless they just grew up in a household where you're diehard Oklahoma or diehard Nebraska, which some kids on the team might be that way, but Spencer Rattler, the quarterback our quarterback, obviously growing up in Phoenix, I bet you he didn't growing up, he didn't care about Oklahoma, Nebraska. I think this game means more for the fans than it does the players. Obviously Lincoln Riley likes it. Obviously the fans are excited, but at the end of the day, I think this is just another game for OU, another game that this is a good chance to prove ourselves against I say worthy, a more worthy opponent than Western Carolina. Obviously, we struggled out of the gate a little bit against Tulane, got the win, came out last week, looked really, really good. But again, it's Western Carolina. This is a chance to, if we go out there and do what we're supposed to do against Nebraska, kind of, get back to the team that we thought we were going to be, that we still think we're going to be.
Yeah, definitely. And before Brum goes real quick, I think it's important to, like you said, mention Brandon, that it is a game for the fans. I think the person in the game that's probably most excited about this rivalry is Scott Frost. He grew up a huge Nebraska fan. Obviously, their head coach now. He played at Nebraska, so it's kind of taken him back to his childhood and back in college. So it'll be exciting to see him on the sideline, I guess. Brum, go ahead.
Yeah, well, speaking of Frost, I mean, this also probably means his job as well, this game. No one expects him to win, but if they come in and get beat 25, 30, 35 points, this might be the nail in the coffin for him. I mean, he's got one of the, I think I saw a graphic. It's like bottom three worst winning percentages in Nebraska history with like four seasons in or something like that. It's not great. I know that the higher ups and all that, it seems like this season, unless they magically turn it around, get a big win against the Sooners this weekend, he's pretty much going to be out of this job. And I think what it comes down to is UCF, they were running the spread offense and all that stuff, and he's trying to do that in the Big Ten, and it just isn't working. But I mean, yeah, going back, a lot of these kids, they're younger than us, and I barely remember watching a few games. I mean, not barely, but I just caught the tail end of the rivalry before Nebraska bailed and went to the Big Ten. Obviously the Big 12 championship game, and then some of the good ones in the late 2000s. I do remember one I vividly remember is the 10-3 game when Nebraska won. It was in Lincoln. I think it was in 09, and that one I vividly remember because I think Ndamukong Suh was in that game. And some stuff. But yeah, so I'm really pumped up about it. But, I really think, Brandon, what you said, I think Lincoln's trying to hit it home that this is actually a big game, even though we haven't seen them in 11 years. and I think he's trying to teach him the history behind it. But how that translates onto the field, I don't know. But I would think that they're trying to instill this. But as the Sooners go to the SEC, this game, after this year and next year, we might not see him again unless we play a bowl game for a long period of time. So we've got to take care of him. It'd be nice to win these next two games against him.
It shouldn't be like, I say should because it should not be a game like the old rivalry game. Teams were really, really good. It was the highly anticipated matchup. The only reason this game is highly anticipated is because it is Oklahoma, Nebraska, and we have that history with them. Nebraska, at the end of the day, they're not holding up their end of this to make it a great matchup because Oklahoma has stayed really, really good since we've last met. When the last time we met them was a Big 12 championship game, and obviously we've gone on to win plenty more Big 12 championship games since 2010. I don't know how many Big 10 titles Nebraska has won in that time frame. Probably not very many. And this year, they're not even close to being ranked right now. This game should be a slaughter. We'll see.
Yeah, this game's definitely going to be. Obviously, Oklahoma's very favored. Over the last couple of days, I've kind of been watching some of their highlights. Their quarterback, because it seems like he's been around forever. And if we can make him try to beat us with his arm, I think Oklahoma is going to absolutely destroy this team. He can run the ball very well.
Does anybody know if Adrian Martinez, the current guy, is related to Taylor Martinez, the last quarterback that we played with that they had?
I have no idea.
I have no idea either.
I don't think so, but good Lord, I feel like Martinez has been at the quarterback for Nebraska for the last decade.
When I first watched the Illinois game, I was like, Taylor Martinez still plays there? There's no way. And then it's Adrian Martinez, and I just wondered if they are brothers. That's quite the wonder if there was an accident involved there.
Yeah,
with that 10-year difference in age, at least.
Yeah. So let's actually get going into breaking down the games a little bit. Obviously, the Sooners had a few injuries in last week's game against Western Carolina. Danny Stutzman most likely is going to be out till K-State, Texas, because of his elbow. I think was dislocated or something. And then Bowman and Washington are dealing with some nagging injuries, and I feel like they would
Brian
play
Darby's out too, but
Darby, but that one I was really scared of with that, but I don't think that one's going to be very long, but maybe a couple weeks, 3 weeks. But I think Bowman and Washington would play if it was a big game, like if it was the Big 12 championship game or playoff. I just don't think the Sooners are going to try to push it too far with them. Jose, I know you've got a few injuries that Nebraska is coming in with that you took note of.
Yeah, so their starting tight end, Austin Allen, and Xavier Betts, who is one of their rotational wide receivers, was hurt in their game against Buffalo. I know Austin was hurt in the first half, I believe. He didn't get up and was carted off the field. Couldn't find any updates on his status for this game, but from reading that he got carted off the field and helped out, I wouldn't expect him to play this week. And Xavier Betts, also couldn't find any updates on him. I know when I was listening to Scott Frost, his presser from this a couple of days ago, he was pretty discreet about their status, both of them. So I know that the entire offense is kind of missing a lot of pieces. So this is just going to hurt them even more. Like I said, just try to get Adrian to beat us with his arm, which is very inconsistent. He overthrows a lot. So if I were to bet like a prop, probably that Oklahoma gets 2 picks or more, because this dude overthrows his receivers bad.
That's the thing. Yeah, if you watch the Illinois game, he was awful. He had 6, 7 tight ends running wide open, and he's overthrowing them, like you mentioned. Like just we keep him in the pocket and make him throw. We're gonna their ass.
Well, and another thing is, and to be honest with you, he hasn't thrown too. Now that I'm saying this, Nebraska has more of an issue with their fumbling. They fumbled 7 times this year and have lost it 4 times. Martinez has not thrown a pick this season. So while he's not accurate, he hasn't thrown a pick yet.
This will be the toughest defense he sees, though, so far, without a doubt.
Yeah. So I'm looking at it as OU has forced a handful of turnovers, a lot of fumbles. I don't think OU's gotten an interception this year.
Bryson Washington.
We've got one actually last game.
One. Yeah. Okay. I for some reason I thought there was one then as I was saying it, but we've got a handful of fumbles. Tulane dropped it a few times. That is something that I'm looking for, that they might be able to force a fumble or two. It seems like ball security is a little bit of an issue. I remember we were all watching it together, the Illinois-Nebraska game. It was 30 seconds left before half. They were trying to push the ball down the field, get some points right before the end of half. And Martinez got strip sacked and they returned it for a touchdown. And that pretty much sealed their fate in that Illinois game. I think the ball security is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to the whole the Scott Frost being on the hot seat thing, which I think he absolutely is too. I agree with you on that, and I think that they should maybe got canned after the Illinois game just because Illinois just lost to UTSA, but that's beside the point. You mentioned him trying to run the spread offense and it maybe not being successful in the Big Ten. I don't know. That's where I think I might disagree with you, because like Ohio State did a little bit of that with Justin Fields. We've seen it every now and again in the Big Ten. I don't think he has the quarterback to run in Martinez. I'm not a huge Martinez believer, and that's just going back and kind of what we're all saying a little bit. Inaccurate fumbles, we'll see.
His offensive line isn't doing him any favors either. I mean, specifically against Illinois, his tackles were getting bullied, and pretty much the edges were pretty much having the tackles sack Martinez, because they were just so easy to push.
He should have a huge game then, and Reggie Grimes should have a huge game.
I don't think
guys like that.
To me,
no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think you're totally right. And maybe I should phrase it differently. Yes, the spread offense can work in the Big Ten. It's just Nebraska doesn't have the talent.
Definitely agree with
but and it's kind of weird with Martinez. Scott Frost he started him since 2018, and I believe this is his fourth season. So they started together. First year, I believe Martinez was a first year starter with Frost coming in, and like he's stuck by his side. I get it, but in 2019 he threw 10 touchdowns and 9 picks. He's just been really weird with this whole. Is he frozen on your
screen? He's frozen. All right.
No, I'm back. Yeah, I said it's better than 9 touchdowns and 10 picks.
I guess, but
not saying it's great, but it's better than 9 and 10.
Yeah, you think you want to go get a quarterback? Yeah, that is strange, Mom. I didn't even realize that.
That's the thing I was going to ask you guys.
Was so bad.
How long do you think it will take Nebraska, if ever? Or I mean, I'm sure maybe I say if ever. How long until Nebraska could be good again? Like it's unrelated to the preview a little bit, but at the same time it is, because it is Nebraska preview. But like, how do you sell 18, 17-year-olds on Nebraska now? You can't just talk about the history all the time.
I have a theory with this, and I don't think Nebraska will ever get back to being what they were, and unless they move conferences. See, here's the issue: they're in the Midwest in Lincoln, Nebraska, in the middle of nowhere. Okay, you play in the Big Ten, you play Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State. What's the recruiting area over in there? Just thinking about where all the Big Ten schools are, how much talent comes out of that area? There's a decent amount come out of the DMV area, Maryland and some in Ohio, but all the kids in Ohio go to play at Ohio State. There's not a whole lot of talent.
What about Illinois? With Chicago specifically being a huge city I imagine there's some pretty darn good athletes coming out of there.
They're not bad, but if you're in Chicago, why wouldn't you go play for Ohio State? They're a bigger brand. And what I'm getting at is, with them going to the Big Ten, they can't sell all these kids in the South and the Southeast, because at least when you were in the Big 12, you could recruit Texas really well. Because you can say, listen, we play Texas Tech, Texas, TCU, we play Texas, we play
Baylor,
Baylor. So we've got 4 teams in the state of Texas. And you could tell the parents, like, listen, we will most likely have 2 games a year in the state of Texas. So you can see your son play at least twice a year if you can't get up to Lincoln. They have no connection to any great recruiting state other than, just trying to sell them on history. I just, they're,
yeah, but you can't sell, I mean, especially the further removed they come from this history that they have, they're already 10 years removed from being good. The further that goes along, the less and less these 17-year-olds are going to be like, oh yeah, Nebraska in the 70s, 80s was nasty. Like that they don't care. Like, and they shouldn't.
Yeah. But let's get back to this game this Saturday, OU Nebraska. Obviously, I think the offense should have an amazing game, but so will the defense. That from what, again, the Nebraska's offense is very spotty. Again, watching them, it was just when they're on, super confident, when they're moving, they can score the ball. But as soon as you get them down to bullying their linemen, getting Martinez to panic and just run, they have a hard time coming back from that. So, like earlier, before we got into this last discussion, look for our linebackers, guys like Nick, Benito, IT, anyone on the defensive line, really, Perry on Redmond, to have huge games, because this offensive line for Nebraska is hit or miss. And even Scott Frost mentioned it. They, on almost every play that when he watches tape with them, there's always 1 or 2 guys that are making mistakes that cost the entire line. Because as we know, the line has to be one unit, and if they're not together, one guy can just absolutely destroy the game plan.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think it'd be really cool if OU could hit home on 6 or 7 sacks Saturday.
Yeah. And speaking of, linebackers and stuff, I don't know if you guys saw, but I just saw the article today, I think it was earlier today. Caleb Kelly and Adrian Martinez were teammates in high school.
I saw that too. That's
insane.
Insane.
So, which is kind of crazy. Caleb Kelly was class of 2016. Martinez was class of 2018. So basically it was for one season. Kelly caught 12 touchdowns because he played wide receiver as well in high school. And I just think that's interesting. So it's kind of crazy.
Hopefully Caleb gets a clear shot on his old bud.
I know, because he had one clear shot on him, I guess, in high school practice, and they never let him do it again. But yeah.
Odd game.
So what I'm really looking for is, yes, the ball security, as I mentioned earlier. I really think Nebraska might fumble it once or twice because they've shown that they can't hold on to the football, and OU has been forcing fumbles. Yeah. The other thing I'm curious of is now with Woody Washington and Billy Bowman most likely being out. So we've got a few corners, Jaden Davis, Justin Broyles, Bryson Washington, Joshua
Latrell McCutcheon got the start against Western Carolina.
Yeah, and Latrell McCutcheon, those 5 guys, they're going to play probably a significant amount this weekend in the corner position, rotating.
Yeah.
And, for the leading receiver for Nebraska's, I might butcher his name, is Samori Toure. He's got 13 catches, 306 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's a 6'3", like 190 to 200-pound receiver. He's a long and tall, lanky receiver. And I know Bryson Washington, I believe he's 6'2". Another guy that I forgot to mention is Justin Harrington. I think Harrington is going to be the perfect matchup for a guy like Toure with that length and size, because I think Harrington is 6'1" or 6'2" as well. And Harrington's a pretty good player. If, I don't know who, they might try multiple people and then see who's got the hotter hand. I mean, Joshua Eaton, I think, is 6'1" as well. That's the matchup I'm curious of with a couple key guys being out. Now, obviously, Moman plays that nickel spot. I would imagine Cradell will step into that.
That's what I was going to say. I agree with all you're saying about that corner spot, and we're going to rotate all those guys. And I think that's absolutely going to happen. But I think Woody Washington is kind of penciled in. I think going forward is going to be one of the guys. So I don't know if these guys can really take, once Woody Washington's healthy and good, very many reps from him. I think this is Jeremiah Cradell's. I think he's the one who has the best opportunity in front of him in Billy Bowman's absence. I think Billy Bowman's a monster. So does Hose. I mean, we all do. Hose is probably the highest on him, but at the end of the day, he is a freshman. And if Jeremiah Cradell, let's say he goes out there and doesn't miss any assignments, is a sure tackler, let's say he gets a pick or something, forces a fumble, any of the above, I think he can really push for going forward time over Billy Bowman, or at least a better split.
Yeah, I mean, it's key in sports. Availability is your best ability, and obviously injuries happen. You can't control what's going to happen on the field all the time. So if you're in Cradell's position, take the time and take advantage of every second you have on that field, because like you said, this is the game where if he performs well and maybe he gets a pick, he forces a turnover, or is just a very sure tackler, then I'm sure that if the coaches had a question on who's going to be their starting nickel for the first half of the season and then moving forward even the whole year, this is time to shine. So, I mean, hopefully he takes advantage of it, because there's not a better time than a game against Nebraska, where the entire OU fan base and Nebraska fan base, and probably the entire country, really, because you don't have to be a fan of these teams to be watching this game. It's a long storied history. So it's time to shine. Kickoff. It is. We got Joel Klatt on the call with Gus. So it's going to be a classic. So if you guys had a pick, who's going to be a key player on each side of the ball for the Sooners to take this and just make it a 79-0 game, or whatever it was to last week?
I hope that happens so bad. Brennan, you go first on this one.
Brum.
All right, I guess I'll start us off on this one. I'm gonna go back to what we talked about the last episode. Kennedy Brooks. We mentioned Kennedy Brooks being that guy for us. Again, just like Jeremiah Cradell, it looks like we lost Brum, but we'll carry on here. Just like with Jeremiah Cradell, we mentioned him having the opportunity to take it and run. If Kennedy Brooks keeps stringing together solid weeks, it's going to be his. So Kennedy Brooks on offense. Defensively, I'm going to pick someone on the defensive line, just because we mentioned how bad that offensive line can be, or probably is. Let's lock in Perrion Winfrey's deal. Let's go with Perrion Winfrey and Kennedy Brooks.
All right. I think that's a good pair. Brum, I don't know if you heard the question, but
yeah, so it's a big player on both sides of the ball. Well, I think on defense, I think my biggest key is really the cornerback spot. I really think it's going to be Justin Harrington is going to get a decent amount of playing time.
Has he played this season
yet? He's
played a little last game.
Some. Okay. Yeah. I think he might get a shot, or it might be Broshton Washington or Joshua Eaton. It's tough for me. It's that corner spot. I don't want to say a specific name, but it's that corner spot to match up against Tourier. Offensively, I mean, I think we're going to really try to establish the run, and it's tough because Gray and Brooks are going to split it 50, maybe 40-40, and have, Weatherman Jay.
I was about to ask, did we get some Weatherman Jay this 20.
Game? But I mean, I would think it's going to be Eric Gray and Brooks. Like I caught the tail end. You said Kennedy Brooks. I just think there's going to be such an emphasis on rushing the ball, establishing the run. It's going to be interesting. I mean, and really it's that offensive line. I just really am curious to see how this looks, because Nebraska's defensive front isn't too bad. It's going to be one of their better ones that we've seen so far. I guess this is only the third game, obviously, so it's not like Sooners have seen a lot. But Jose, did you already pick, or did I miss that?
No, I have not picked. So on the offensive side, I actually think it's going to be Mims as a slot. He's just going to get the middle of the field pretty open. When I was watching their game again, their game 2, I can't remember who they played, but when I was watching Nebraska's second game, they let a lot of short and middle passes get through easy because they're so worried about getting beat over top. So Mims is going to be there to establish that game, I believe. And then obviously him and Mario are going to get those explosive plays down the field. On the defensive side, just from what we've been talking about, I really want to pick a linebacker. I just don't know who's going to get the most playing time in this game. Because if it's going to be a blowout, I would pick a guy like Ethan Downs, who's going to come in more than likely with Stutzman being injured. He'll be getting more playing time, and that dude can get to the backfield fast.
He's the guy we were very impressed with in our last show.
Reggie Grimes.
That's who that was my thinking. If it's going to be more established starters or rotational guys, then Reggie Grimes is going to be coming in and just absolutely making Adrian's day horrible. That dude's going to make it so easy to get past whichever tackle he's coming up against, and Adrian's going to have to take off. And unfortunately for him, he's going to be facing Asamoah and Benito and IT to even get past the line of scrimmage.
And my guy Guegbu.
Exactly. So
Sean Wyatt, and we're loaded. I mean, there's a lot of linebackers that are pretty darn good for this team.
Yeah. I really think the key is going to be for the OU is containing Martinez, because obviously he's the leading rusher and passer, obviously, for Nebraska. You contain him and make him beat you over the top. And I really think they're going to double Tourier, with the safety over the top, and just say, listen, you got to throw it to someone else. You got to beat us with your arm going to somewhere else. I think that's what's going to end up happening.
Yeah, that's what Host kind of mentioned at the top of the show. Like, that's the most important thing for us is keep him in the pocket, make him throw to beat us. Because if we do that, like you just said, I mean, that's going to be a very good formula for Oklahoma.
Yeah. And I've got one last little deal, what I found was interesting. And this all happened in the Tulane game. The Sooners have allowed 6 trips into the red zone, and 5 of them have ended up in touchdowns. So I'm curious to see if the Sooners can shore up that whole bend but don't break mentality. Force field goals or force short punts. Ohio State did punt from their 33, or I think Oregon's 33 or something like that last weekend. So crazy short punts do happen sometimes.
That is a 50-yarder. Maybe Ohio State's kicker's horrible.
Yeah.
Our guy Gabe would make it.
He would.
Gabe could hit from 90.
Yeah. So that is something interesting. Obviously, Western Carolina didn't score, so they obviously didn't count.
They did have a red zone trip.
They did, and that must have been the one that
Ethan Downs got to come chase down.
Sound strip.
Yeah, strip.
Yeah.
I always want to say strip sack, but it's not a sack.
Yeah. So they've allowed quite a bit. It is what it is, and I'm curious to see if they can shore that up. Yeah.
Well, ideally Nebraska doesn't reach the red zone.
Ideally. Yeah. Brandon, any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
OU covers.
OU covers. I think it's 22.5 right now.
22.5, yeah.
I think that's a good bet. I'm on your side there.
I'm taking Nebraska plus 22.5. I think OU win by 21. It's going to be a nail. Whoever bets that's going to be sweating it out. I think it'll be something like, I don't know, 45-24.
If it ends up being 45-24, I'll be okay with it. I mean, I'm not betting on the game, but I think Oklahoma covers.
I just need Oklahoma to cover.
And see, the only reason why I'm giving Nebraska 24 points is because I do think Lincoln's been in their ears, and all the other coaches have been in their ears about how big of a game this is, the history behind it. We're at home. We're on prime time. Granted, it's not the ideal prime time, but I think OU might come out a little juiced up a little bit, like they did against Tulane. Maybe allow a touchdown earlier in the game than they really should, in a normal series. And, Nebraska's put up a decent amount of points. Granted, they played Fordham and Buffalo.
Here's going with what Brown's saying. If Oklahoma does what they do against Tulane, come out crappy, get up 2 touchdowns, then figure it out, 23-0 second quarter, build that huge lead late in the third quarter, and then forget how to play football, then Oklahoma won't cover. If we go out there and we play 4 quarters, there's no doubt.
Yeah, I think that's my biggest my biggest deal with this team and OU in general for the last few years is, can we put 4 quarters together? We play a couple quarters or a quarter here, a quarter there of great football on both sides, but then we just can't string it all together. It seems like that's what we're waiting for.
If we can play 3 quarters against Nebraska, we'll cover.
Yeah, that's true. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's like 51-10, but I just don't know about that.
Well, I guess we're just going to have to wait to find out to Saturday. So if that's everything, guys, if you've made it this far, congratulations. I don't know how you guys made it this far with all of this conversation, but we really appreciate it again. One last thing that we did forget to mention on the recruiting front for Oklahoma, Gabriel Brownlow Dindy was crystal balled again to OU, this time by Wiltfong. And his dad did say that Oklahoma is the school to beat. So that's good news. We're getting that top talent, the defensive side. Who knows if it's because we're finally stepping it up on defense, or this SEC announcement was something that really forced them to lean Oklahoma even more. But hopefully we hear an announcement in the coming months from this guy, so that we can all feel better about some of the losses that we've taken over the last few months. So yeah,
would be a huge get.
It would be awesome.
I bet we'll hear an announcement by the end of October. That's my bold take. End of October.
All right.
Let's rock with it.
Dindy to OU by the end of October. Maybe Halloween weekend. Who knows? We'll figure it out. But
that'd be spooky.
All right. So again, make sure that you're hitting that subscribe button, hit the like button, share the video if you enjoyed it, share it with a Nebraska fan. We always love to hear people hate on us or just rage about what we say, because it is stupid sometimes. So let us know. Make sure to leave a comment too. It's always fun to read them. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.